Advaitam Savadutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Savagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubheva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Thank you so much. So to start off, actually, I was kind of perplexed as to which way to go for this presentation. It is about mothers. And Prabhuji was very kind to guide me. So I decided that what I wanted to do actually was talk about the qualities of the mothers from our scriptures, really kind of to show and how we, kind of to see their example and how we can kind of take away from what they've done in the past and how we can implement, their qualities into our lives. But really, before we start, I just kind of want to make this a little bit interactive, and I want to ask everybody, what qualities of a mother kind of come into your mind, maybe when you think of your own, or when you think of the ideal mother, or, however it is. So if anybody wants to raise their hand, just an adjective or something that describes maybe a mother or what you think a mother is. Yeah, okay.
Loving.
Yes, that's
Caring.
good. Yes.
Selfless.
Yes. Anybody else?
Tolerant.
Debatable sometimes, but yes. Yes, Prabhuji.
Selfless.
Yes, selfless. Yes, that's a good one.
Sacrifice.
Yes, she sacrifices. Yes. Anybody else?
Violent and angry.
Yes, sometimes yes. Yes. That is also true. So actually, what I've done for this presentation is I've kind of come up with a list of qualities that maybe I thought I see in a lot of mothers. There is actually a little bit of a hierarchy to this list that I've come up with. And what I've done is I've actually made, I've kind of thought about who best maybe represents this particular word or this particular description of a mother to me. So just going straight into it. So the qualities that I came up with, a lot of you have mentioned the qualities that I put on the list. First, I put she is a guide or she provides guidance. One, more specifically for us who are devotees and are in Krishna consciousness, she is a spiritual guide. Another quality is that she is resilient. She bounces back. She doesn't let difficulties kind of come in her way and stop her from moving forward in life. And she teaches us to be the same. Another thing is selfless. I feel like, actually it's said, right? The closest love, anything that can come closest to the love of God is actually the love of a mother. So she's very, very selfless. She only thinks about her child and the people around her, and usually she puts herself on the back burner, really. Another quality I came up with is that she's very mindful. Another one is that she's very compassionate. And the last one that I came up with is that she is extremely, extremely loving. So the first, going in this list of hierarchy, the first description is that she is a guide or she provides guidance. So who do you think, I'm just going to throw this out to everybody in the audience, who do you think kind of best represents a guide or somebody who provides guidance from our Shastras?
Guru.
Yeah, I heard.
Sunita.
Yes, that's a good one. There's one more actually that is on my list. So if anybody knows. Okay, so going on, actually the first person that I thought of is Prahlad Maharaj's mother, who is Kayadhu. And I actually came up with her. I was thinking, how kind of to implement. I had a feeling of that she did guide Prahlad, but the way that she guided him was actually very indirect. And the story about her, for whoever knows and whoever doesn't know, is that she actually is the wife of Hiranyakashipu, who was a demon. And basically how her story comes by is that when Hiranyaksha, who is Hiranyakashipu's brother, he was killed, Hiranyakashipu actually was full of vengeance, and he was extremely, extremely angry. And he thought to himself that I'm going to go into the forest, or I'm going to go on the Himalayas, and I'm going to do tapasya. And he basically left his wife, Kayadu, who was actually expecting their child. And so because of the situation, because of the fact that he was an extremely, extremely strong and evil demon, the Devatas actually got extremely nervous that he was having a child. And they thought to themselves that we have to destroy this child, because otherwise if he becomes like his father, he's going to destroy the entire universe. And he's actually going to maybe spearhead or take the movement further of the fact that his father didn't believe in God and he considered himself God. So they were really afraid of this. So what they decided to do was actually take her as a prisoner. And they were dragging her, and again, she is pregnant, she's expecting her child. So they were dragging her and trying to take her as a prisoner. And so luckily for her, Narada Muni was walking by and he noticed that a woman was being taken away. So he actually went and stopped the Devatas from trying to commit this mistake, because back then it was considered extremely, extremely sinful if you had abducted a woman. And on top of that, she was expecting a child. So that made it even worse. So he actually guided them and told them that, no, you know what? Give her to me, I'm going to take care of her, and we're going to make sure that nothing goes wrong in the situation. You rest and be assured that things will be fine and he's not going to turn out like. That's where she had Prahlad, and actually that's where she ended up listening to a lot of sermons and a lot of Hari Katha. And actually, Narada Muni and all of the sages in the ashram really took it upon themselves to make sure that they made her listen to the proper information. Even at the times that she would fall asleep during the katha, they would keep on going because they knew that the baby was still listening. So I actually picked her to be, to represent guidance, because even though she used to fall asleep and she would not listen to the whole lecture, and at the end of it, she actually didn't remember a lot of the things that were spoken to her. She was the vessel that made it possible for Prahlad to listen to everything that he did and become the great devotee that he did. And actually, through her example, it's very, very relevant, or it's very, very, it's seen that, if you are a woman who is expecting and you listen to mundane things, your child will actually kind of have those qualities in them when they're born. And if you listen to things such as Harikatha and things that are positive, that affects the baby as well. And I actually see that a lot in our devotee community as well, when the mothers who are expecting and are having babies, they're like, for example, Tulsi Mataji. When she was pregnant, she was singing and dancing and doing kirtan and all of those things, and you can actually see that reflected in her son. So, one of the things that I think Kayadu really, really did was that she was the first guide, and she actually was the perfect example of the fact that, mothers are the first people that the kids come in contact with in this material world. So she really, really exemplifies that, I think. And then, I actually heard some of the Prabhujis and Matajis say, the next person, so this is actually just a picture of her being taken. And it's a beautiful picture, and this is Narad Muni, who is stopping the atrocities from happening. So I actually heard this, and this is Suniti, is the next person, and she's actually more of a direct guide to her son Prologue, to her son Dhruva Maharaj, excuse me. So she actually, I have some notes on her. Just gonna pull it up really quickly. So in Dhruva Maharaj's case, actually, the situation is that his stepmother, Suruchi, who was his father's second wife, he is the son of King Uttanapad. So, you know, him and his brother Uttama, they wanted to sit on their father's lap. And, you know, the king really looked at both of them as equals and loved them equally. And, you know, he took them on their lap and he made them sit on his lap. And, you know, he was having a wonderful time and he was, you know, engaging in loving exchanges with his son. And then Dhruva Maharaj's stepmother, Suruchi, actually saw this and she got very, very angry. So what she did is that she went in, and I think she was really burning in a lot of jealousy for Dhruva Maharaj. So what she did was she went up to him and she removed him from his father's lap. She insulted him and actually said to him that, you know, if you want to sit on your father's lap, you have to be qualified first. And at the moment, you're not qualified. And the reasoning she gave is that in order to be qualified, you have to be born from my womb. And because you aren't, you know, you should just go and pray to Lord Vishnu that happens for you at some point in another life. So, you know, Dhruva Maharaj at this point is a 5-year-old child. So to say that to somebody who is that young, it leaves quite a lasting impression. He actually, Prabhuji, when he was helping me, he actually told me, he was like, you know, if you want to understand how Dhruva Maharaj actually felt in that moment, you have to look at it as, they kind of compare him to not a burning leaf, not a dry leaf, but a burning leaf. Now, if you look at a dry leaf, you know, when you stamp on it or when you crush it, you know, it breaks and it disintegrates into a few pieces and, you know, it's on the floor. Jay? However, when you look at a burning leaf, it disintegrates on a whole different level. It internally gets completely destroyed. And that's exactly how Dhruva Maharaj felt at that moment. So, you know, in a fit of anger, he actually ran to his mother Sunita and he kind of narrated everything that happened to him in that moment. And, you know, Sunita could have very easily said, oh, you know, she's a terrible woman. You should grow up and you should fight against this atrocity and you should, you know, she could have given him a whole world of bad advice. She could have taught him to be vengeful and spiteful and have an immense amount of hatred for somebody who did that to him, especially when it wasn't even her place to say something like that. But instead, she, I feel, best kind of represents that phrase, respond, not react. And that's exactly what she told Dhruva Maharaj. She instructed him that, you know what? If she told you that you need to go into the forest and pray to Lord Vishnu, you should. And it's not so that you can be born from her womb. Even if you want something material in this world, you should pray to the Lord. If you want to be successful at anything in this world, you should pray to the Lord. Because sincere prayers really go a long way. And like I mentioned, she could have said a whole world of bad things to him. She could have actually aggravated the situation to an intense amount. However, she was being smart and she was using her intelligence and she actually diffused the situation. And in turn, she actually paved the way for Dhruva Maharaj to become somebody who's so determined that he actually achieved what he wanted to achieve. So I think she's a perfect example of someone who's a perfect guide. I mean, when I'm going through the list, actually, you'll notice a lot of parallels. Actually, it could be that, oh, you know, Kunti Maharani is actually really, she's a great guide too. And, you know, all of these women actually have all of these qualities. But I think this is kind of just a personal list and more so who I kind of first thought of when I thought of these words. So, you know, there will be a lot of crisscrossing and there'll be a lot of, you know, commonalities between the mothers. But yeah, that is Suniti. So the next description I have of a mother actually is someone who is a spiritual guide. And I was actually thinking about this. I was like, who do I really understand, or who do I think would be a perfect fit for this? And I think, does anybody maybe have, who do you think could fall under this category? Anybody? And this is, again, examples more from the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Gita, all of our spiritual texts. So, I don't know if anybody... Okay. Sita Mata is... She is. Could be Maharani? Yes, she could be. Anybody else? Okay. So, who I thought of actually is Janava Devi. She is the wife of Nityananda Prabhu, and actually she actually has done a lot more than we know. And actually, for me, this presentation has actually helped me a lot because I feel like it's been a really big learning for me, because I actually didn't really know any pastimes about Mother Janava and what she's done for Krishna consciousness actually back then. So I think this was actually a wonderful learning for me. And so when I was, researching a little bit about her, when I was, speaking to Prabhuji and Mataji, they actually told me that, after the disappearance of the Panchatattva, she was actually the pioneer or the person who actually took the movement forward. It wasn't that she sat there and was like, oh, now everybody's gone, now what's going to happen to the movement? I don't know what I'm going to do. She didn't actually sit down and actually do that. She took the initiative to take Mahaprabhu's message forward, which is actually, and I feel like she's a really great example for us women. I know that, a lot of us might think, what could I do, or how, maybe I'm not as interested in deity seva as I am in preaching, or maybe I don't have the qualities maybe that of a good cook, so I can't really cook for Krishna that well. I don't really know what to do. And I think using Janava Devi as an example is really, really great, because she kind of took her strengths and she helped our movement and she helped it grow more and more and more. So actually after the disappearance of the Panchatattva, she actually organized, there we go. So she took the movement forward and she actually organized a Keturi Sankirtan Mahotsav. So in Keturi, she actually started this Sankirtan festivals where thousands of devotees would come. They would sing, Mahaprabhu's glories, and they would sing love for Krishna. And they actually, they would just come together, and they would, like how we are together today. And one of the things that actually stood out for me is that she really, really served all of the devotees, and not only did she start this festival, but she would also cook the prasadam for everybody there, and she would personally go and serve each and every devotee that came, and she would thank them, and she would, she would spread more and more love of God to them through her delicious food. So the next thing that she did was that she was a Diksha Guru, which means that she was a spiritual guru who actually initiated a lot of devotees. So, I find that very, very interesting, because actually, I think in the movement today you don't see that as much. Women obviously do take on very, very strong roles in our movement, but it's very rare to find a initiating female guru, and I know that is a little bit of a controversial subject, so I won't talk about it too much, but I think it's definitely great that she kind of is a wonderful example of that for us, and that, if she could do it, we could definitely do it. So that's actually what I learned about her, and the one thing that I actually, in my discussions with Prabhuji and Mataji, learned is that, women are very, very, they're very simple-minded, actually. And I know a lot of people are probably going to laugh when I say that, but they're actually, in reality, they're very simple-minded, and also because they're very, very nurturing. Their nature is to just be caring and kind, and, I'm not a mother right now, but I know I have those feelings for some of the kids who are here in the movement, and, I feel a sense of protection towards them. So I think it's just inbuilt in us that we feel, very, very loving and very caring towards others. And that's actually one of the qualities that Janava Devi had. She was very, very loving and very caring and very nurturing, and which is why she made a wonderful, Diksha Guru. Because what I thought about is somebody who has, a lot of knowledge, there can be a sense of, oh, I know this, and, you can't, I know everything. Why are you trying to tell me that I don't know this, or this is something new, or why are you trying to introduce new ideas to me? But, women are not like that. They're very simple, and they're always really open to learning new things. And I feel like their life experiences really, really kind of help them in that way, when they're daughters, when they turn into wives, when they turn into mothers, they're constantly evolving, constantly changing. And so that's why I think, she's a wonderful example, and women in general, and mothers in general, are just very, very strong and very simple and, very wonderful beings. So moving forward into the next kind of quality, I put resilient. So does anybody maybe have an example of one of the mothers in our Shastras who's been extremely, extremely resilient? And resilient meaning that she is, they bounce back. No, no hurdle or no obstacle kind of makes them give up. Yes, yes. Yes, that's perfect. So Kunti Devi is a wonderful example of someone who is resilient. She went through an extreme amount of unfortunate events in her life, starting with her husband passing away, and next would be when her sons were constantly being attacked throughout her life, whether it was verbal, whether it was emotional, whether it was in any form. They were constantly brought down and insulted and made to feel very, very small. It started with the pastime of the lac house that Duryodhana had actually made for them. He set it on fire with the intention of trying to kill them. Another example is when the gambling match took place. Not only did her sons lose everything, but her daughter-in-law actually also lost a lot of her dignity at that point. And it was extremely, extremely hurtful and embarrassing for her as well. Another thing is that she had to witness the war on Kurukshetra, and not only did she see, she actually saw a lot of her family members being killed, whether they were old, whether they were young, whether, everybody who she might have had a personal relationship with, she saw them lose their lives in that battle. She also witnessed the loss of her grandkids, all of the Pandava's sons, as well as Abhimanyu, the loss of their life. And then she also had to witness her great-grandson almost be killed in the womb of his mother. However, after everything that she suffered, she didn't give up. She didn't sit and complain about her life. She didn't cry. She didn't say, oh my God, why does Krishna why does he not love us? Why is he not protecting us? Why? We tend to complain every single day of our lives when we go to work, when we go to, come back home, and your kids are not, doing what you want them to do, and, constantly complaining and cribbing and being like, oh, why me? But she never did that, and she went through an intense amount of pain throughout her life, at every aspect, every turn. So, I think she is a wonderful example of someone who's resilient, someone who didn't cow down to her situation. And I think she is a great example for all of us to really, really learn from. Anytime we feel that, oh my God, I'm in this problem. I don't know what I'm gonna do. Maybe I should just give up. Maybe I'll, a lot of people, they do end their lives because they can't figure out what they're gonna do. So, I think she's a wonderful example of how, no matter how big our problems seem to us, if we look at it in comparison to her, they're never gonna be that big. So she's a wonderful example of that. And I think what really, really brought her through all of these issues and all of these problems that she faced was her faith in Krishna. She just knew that Krishna was taking care of them. So she kind of just let it happen. She didn't try she didn't try her best to stop anything, because she just knew that Krishna would take care of them. And I think that faith really took her, a long way. And there's actually a book about her. We had read it in our Bhakti Vriksha, which is the teachings of Queen Kunti. And in that, she actually says, she actually prays to Krishna to give her more and more pain, which is, when I thought about that, that's very, very humbling and actually a very, very strong thing that she's done. Because I don't think any of us really has it in us to ask for more and more pain. If we have a little bit of inconvenience, we crumble and we crack and we're like, I don't even know what I'm going to do anymore. And, oh Krishna, why are you doing this to me? Why aren't you giving me mercy? Why are you giving me mercy to my neighbor and not to me? So we tend to really, really get into that funk, and, we can't really ever look past it. But she was such an exalted devotee that she asked Krishna, give me more pain, because you know what, in happiness, I might forget you, but in pain, I actually won't ever forget you. Because I just know that you're going to take care of me. So and it's actually one of the things that she said, she prays, and I wrote it down because it's actually a wonderful thing she says. She says, my sweet Lord, as the river Ganges forever flows to the sea without hindrance, let my attention be constantly drawn to you without being diverted to anything else. That's actually a very, very strong prayer. And she didn't say to Krishna, Krishna, stay back in Hastinapur because I want you to protect my kids. I want you to make sure that they never face any more problems. She never said that. She just said, stay back just because I want to be able to serve you, and I want to be able to always have you in front of my eyes and serve you and, pray to you and have your, be under your shelter. So she's really, really is an extremely wonderful mother that we can always look up to. Okay, moving on. Okay. So another quality that I came up with in mothers is that they're extremely selfless, and I know a lot of people actually mention that. So who do you think is a wonderful example of someone who is selfless? I know, again, like I mentioned, a lot of names will be crossing, and a lot of these wonderful figures have the same qualities, but just somebody I think who really epitomizes selflessness. Anybody? Yeah, she is definitely selfless. That's a good example. Anybody else? Yeah. Yes. That is who I actually thought of. I thought of Mother Devaki. So hold on a second, sorry. So as everybody knows, she is the wife of King Vasudeva, and she actually is the mother of Krishna. I don't know if I should say actual mother of Krishna or what word to use, because Yashoda is actually just as much a mother as Devaki is. So with her, her situation was that on the day of her wedding, there was a prophecy that her 8th child is actually going to kill Kamsa, and at this point, Kamsa was actually had the reins of the chariot that they were taking Devaki and Vasudeva on through the city. They had just gotten married, and it was a wonderful celebration going on, and he was her brother holding the reins of the chariot, and he was, saying, my sister got married to such a wonderful person. And the minute that this prophecy happened, there was a 360-degree turn in the situation. He actually almost tried to kill her in that moment because he was so evil that he just couldn't handle this reality. And he then goes ahead and puts them into prison. And initially what happens is that, he decides, okay, you know what? She had 8 children. I'm only going to kill the 8th child. However, if I'm not wrong, I believe it was Narada Muni, or he came and actually, to speed up the process of Krishna's coming, he actually went and kind of told Kamsa that, the 8th child could actually come first. You really never know. So you might want to kind of get this going and make it a little sooner, because you really never know who's going to be the 8th child, what order he's going to come in, and when he's going to kill you. So you might want to speed up the process here. So he actually kind of put that idea in his mind, and so because of that reason, he actually ends up killing all of her children, except Balaram, who I believe got transferred to Rohini's womb, and then Krishna afterwards came. So she did have to witness the death of all of her children. And, I'm sure I can guarantee all the mothers out here, that's a really hard fact to have to come to terms with. One, I believe, is tough enough, but the fact that you have, 6 or 7 kids, and you have to see them all go and leave you, that's a really, really harsh reality to wrap your head around. But she did this, and I feel that she is a perfect example of someone who's selfless, because she knew, she had prayed to Krishna to be her child. So she knew that he was coming, and she knew that he was coming for the greater good. So she kind of allowed this to take place. And in that sense, she didn't think of herself that, oh, my children, what am I going to do? How am I going to survive? Like, why do all of my kids have to be killed? She only thought about Krishna coming, and the fact that if he came to this material world, he was coming for a purpose, and that was to rid the land of Kamsa and his atrocities. And so instead of complaining and instead of, crying and feeling, completely distraught, which I'm sure she did, she just thought about, okay, Krishna is coming for the greater good, so you know what? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And I think she's a wonderful example of someone who is extremely, extremely selfless. And I see that quality actually in a lot of the mothers over here. They're a wonderful example of people who are selfless, constantly, running after their kids, making sure they're okay, making sure they're well fed. It's just a wonderful quality that I think you all possess. So, okay, moving on. All right, so the next one is mindful, for someone who has a lot of mindfulness. Does anybody want to take a stab at who might this be? I heard the name roaming around a little bit previously, so that's a little bit of a hint.
Yeah, Yashoda, right?
Yes, Yashoda. She is someone who's actually extremely mindful, and the reason why I actually thought about this is it's very, very prevalent, I think, in the Damodar Lila. First of all, she, of course, is the second mother of Krishna. I actually wrote foster mother, but I wouldn't even want to say that. I think she's just the second mother of Krishna. She's just as much a mother as Mother Devaki is. So, and she actually got the opportunity to serve the Lord in a way that maybe Mother Devaki actually missed out. She actually got to see Krishna's childhood and see him grow up and be part of all of his leelas. So it's a wonderful. There are wonderful pastimes about that. But more specifically, I feel that she is mindful because of the Damodar Lila as an example. So one day what happened was that she was actually feeding Krishna her breast milk, and she was sitting and just enjoying this loving exchange that she was having with her child. And all of a sudden there was actually a pot of milk on the stove or on the heat or on the fire that she had kept, and it actually boiled over. So when she heard this, she actually immediately just put Krishna down to go and save the milk, because she wanted to make butter or ghee afterwards, or that's what Krishna loves to eat. So she actually, even in that, she actually was thinking about Krishna, because she wanted to make sure that she could make this butter so that he could enjoy it. But instead, because he is a child in this Leela, he actually got very, very angry and actually started throwing a little bit of a tantrum. And he was like, you know what? He's like, if my mother is not paying attention to me, and I'm still hungry, so I really don't know what to do. So actually he sees a little rock or a pebble on the floor, and he's like, he takes it and he breaks the pot that has all of the butter in. And he's like, you know what? I think I'm going to eat this. So he goes, he starts eating it, and when he gets a little bit full, he actually calls all the monkeys that are around the area, and he's like, you also come and eat. So he gives them that mercy as well. And then the monkeys eventually become very, 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 very full, and they decide that, we don't want to eat anymore. So because he's throwing a tantrum a little bit in this Leela, he says, you know what, I don't think Mother Yashoda actually did a good job. I think this butter actually doesn't taste good, which is why they stopped eating. So I'm going to have to tell her that once she comes back. So in the meanwhile, Mother Yashoda, once she's done with all of her chores in the kitchen, she actually comes looking for Krishna again, because she's like, I'll continue feeding him. My baby is hungry. But then she notices that he's not there. And then she's walking in her house and trying to see, where is my Lala? Where is my Lala? Where's my baby? Where did he go? And then all of a sudden she notices, like all mothers do, she notices the mess that he made in the room, and she gets extremely angry. And then she's still looking for Krishna at this point. She's not sure where he is. And then she actually finally sees him feeding the monkeys and conversing with the monkeys and just sitting in his own mess. And she gets extremely, extremely furious, and so she takes a stick and she starts running after him. And she runs after him for quite a while because Krishna is a young boy who has a lot of energy, so he runs very, very fast. And Mother Yashoda is actually a little bit heavier, on the heavier side, so she can't run as fast as Krishna can. And then what she does is she chases him for a while, and then finally she actually catches hold of him, and then finds this wooden mortar, and she actually ties him to that mortar, and that's actually the Damodar Lila. Every time she tries to tie him, I think the rope is 2 inches too short. And then Krishna thinks to himself, they said, oh, my mother actually wants to bind me. So you know what, I'm gonna let her. And then finally, after a few attempts, she's able to bind him. And we look at the Damodar Lila as an example of how Krishna kind of binds you, or a mother can bind you with her love. And this is Mother Yashoda's love for Krishna. But what I kind of took away from this Lila in particular is actually that Mother Yashoda is actually being very mindful, and that she's actually not running after Krishna to hurt him or to beat him up or to punish him really, but to make sure that he learns something from this experience. And she actually wants to teach him to not steal things, because she, in her mind, out of her love and out of her innocence, is like, I don't want my son becoming a thief. So she really, really, at the moment, she's very mindful of what she's trying to do, and she actually wants to take this opportunity to teach her son something so he can become a good, person. So, her love and her affection towards him is completely exalted. I actually read somewhere that, when I was actually doing my research, I read that, when you're comparing Mother Kunti's love to Mother Yashoda's love, of course it's different because, Mother Kunti is his aunt and not like a direct mother. But the reason why people consider Mother Yashoda's love so exalted in comparison is that, Mother Kunti and Bhishma Dev were the 2 people in this whole epic who had the complete knowledge that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everybody else kind of had partial knowledge, or they kind of knew a little bit here and there, but they would always kind of forget about it when they were interacting with him. But Mother Kunti actually had the knowledge, and she always remembered who he was. And, in comparison, Mother Yashoda, whatever she did, all of the love that she had for Krishna was completely oblivious of the fact that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So her love was way more genuine and more, I wouldn't say genuine, it was actually, it's just a different rasa altogether, the love that she had for him. She always looked at him as her son. And okay, this is my baby, and this is, I'm going to teach him a lesson, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. So her love is always considered a little bit more exalted than Kunti Devi's, because she was completely unaware of the fact that he was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So yes, that is Mother Yashoda. She, for me, really exemplifies somebody who's very mindful and somebody who's being, trying to teach their kids a good lesson. Yes, and I mentioned this point that she is unaware that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so we're winding down very quickly. Another thing I thought about when I think of mothers is that they're very compassionate. So who do you think really fits the bill of somebody who's very compassionate? Anybody? Anybody want to take a stab at it? Okay, so when I was thinking about this, I actually had placed her in another category, but with Prabhuji and Mataji's guidance, I actually realized that that's not the way that I should be going, because I guess what I was thinking about it was it didn't really fit the bill. So I actually thought of Mother Sita. And initially I was thinking for me that she's somebody who kind of represents someone who's very determined, which is true, she is extremely determined. And I was kind of thinking that, she always followed, she always actually was very dutiful, and she knew what she had to do in every situation, especially when it came to Lord Ram having to be banished into the forest. So I thought that she's an extremely determined figure. She, there was a point when she actually said a few colorful things to Lord Ram, saying that, are you not trying to take me to the forest because you don't have the capability of taking care of me? And she actually said a few harsh things to him before he actually got convinced to take her. So initially I was thinking she's determined, but then I realized that that's her relationship with her spouse and not with her child. So I kind of switched it and I kind of thought of that she's somebody who is extremely compassionate. And I was actually thinking about the past time. What I was thinking about when I was thinking of Srimati Sita, not only compassionate to her own children, but she is somebody who's compassionate to everybody in the world, everybody in existence, and all living entities. And actually, there is a wonderful story that exemplifies this. So once the war with Ravana was over and he was killed, Hanuman went to the Ashok Vatika and he actually told Mother Sita the good news that Lord Ram has won the war and we're coming to get you, and so she was extremely pleased after hearing this news, and she told Hanuman that ask for a boon, whatever you want. Just tell me what you want and I'll give it to you. I'm so pleased today by the news you've given me. And he actually said to her, he's like, Mother, I am actually really extremely angry at the moment. And what I want from you is the permission to destroy all of these Rakshasis who have been pestering you this entire time. And she could have been like, yeah, go ahead, destroy everything. They've ruined my life, they made me feel so bad. They made me feel like my Ram wasn't going to come. But actually, she decided to take another perspective, and she actually was very compassionate in the moment. She said, no. She said, you know what? She's like, leave them alone, because you know what? They were just doing their job. I don't even think they would have tortured me if they weren't told by their master to do so. So you know what? Just let them be. Don't harm them. And she actually narrates a story, which is actually, I put it as the hunter and the bear story. So the story that she actually narrates to Hanuman is that, once there was a hunter and he was in the forest and all of a sudden he tripped. So when he tripped, he actually caught the eye of a lion and the lion started chasing him. So he was running until he became completely exhausted, and finally he decided he actually climbed up a tree. When he climbed up the tree, he actually saw that there was a bear sleeping on that tree. And he actually asked the bear, he said, please give me shelter. I don't want to die, I don't want to be eaten. Please save me. So please don't tell him I'm here. And then, the lion is still, he's at the bottom of the tree, and he's looking. He actually tells the bear, he said, you know what? He's like, hey, why don't you push him down so I can eat him? I'm really hungry. Please, just push him down. He really tries to, convince him to do the wrong thing. And the bear looks at him and says, no, I'm not going to do that. He said, he's taken my shelter. I'm not going to do that to him. Then, after a while, the bear actually fell asleep. And, then the lion caught the eye of the man that was up there, the hunter. And he says to the hunter, he said, he's sleeping. Why don't you push him down? And, the hunter, being the humans that we are, he actually pushed him down. And he said, because he was like, what do I care? Why do I want to get involved in this? So he actually pushed the bear down, but luckily the bear was able to catch hold of his balance and he actually saved himself. And then, the lion actually tried to then aggravate the situation further by telling the bear, like, hey, look, he tried to push you down. I don't understand why you were being so compassionate to him and why you were being so caring. He was just being ungrateful, and that's why he pushed you down. And, the bear, even though he was being coerced and he was being kind of pushed and the lion was pushing his buttons, the bear really said, no, it's not really in our nature, it shouldn't be in our nature to be so inimical to other beings, and the way to live life is to actually be extremely compassionate to others. Because, and again, it's a more what goes around comes around type of situation, where if you're going to put out bad energy and bad vibes to somebody else, those vibes are going to come directly back to you. So why would you want to get in a situation like that, where you're kind of wishing ill for yourself? So, and that's the story she narrated to actually, convince him that we should take a different route and we shouldn't think of it this way. Another story that actually came to my mind was that she, when they were going back to Ayodhya and the Pushpak Viman, just her compassion and just the fact that she thought about others and not just herself and her enjoyment and her happiness. She actually was telling Lord Ram when he was showing her, look, this is where the Dandakaranya forest is, and this is where we did this pastime, and this is where we did this. She actually said to him, she said, oh, you know what? Let's take the wives of the monkeys along with us in this Pushpak Viman, because you know what? It can expand and fit as many people as we want. So you know what? If we're taking the monkeys with us who have helped us in this journey, we should also take their wives, because their wives have been, without them for so long, and we should consider them too. We should take them with us to Ayodhya so all of us can be together. So that's also another aspect of her that is really, really wonderful. And I think all mothers really do possess a sense of compassion. They're extremely, extremely soft-hearted, and I know sometimes I emotionally blackmail my mother, and it really, really works. So, but it's just because she loves me, and I understand that, and I feel like all mothers are just like that. So, okay, and this is actually the last one in the hierarchy. So, mothers are extremely, extremely loving. So, does anybody want to tell me who they think kind of fits the bill of someone who's extremely loving? Yes. So, she really is the epitome of somebody who is loving. And this is obviously apart from her love for Krishna. And I think where she kind of exemplifies this is in the story. There is actually a story of a jackal. And actually, one day a jackal was kind of caught in a pit. And then Lalita Saki was kind of the head of the gopis. She comes and she tells Radharani, she's like, oh, Radharani, you know what? We've caught a jackal in the pit. But the thing is that he's being pelted with stones. Everybody's throwing stones at him. So, and she's like, he's going to die. She's like, he's going to die. And you know what? It's okay. I think it's fine, right? And so, actually, Radharani actually objected to that. She said, no, you know what? Hold on, let me come with you. So she actually went with Lalita Sakhi, and she actually was so loving and so compassionate that she actually pulled the jackal out of the pit and made sure that he wasn't harmed any further. And in this story, the jackal actually really, really represents us, who are the living entities and the conditioned souls that are kind of caught in this like material pit. And the only way, we can't really get out ourselves. We're being pelted with problems, we're being pelted with so many issues. So, there's really no way for us to get out of it. But if we have Radharani's mercy, and if we have her love, and if we love her just as much, if she can pull out a jackal from a pit, she can definitely help us too in that way. So she, I feel like, really, really exemplifies pure and unadulterated love. Not only for Krishna, like I mentioned, but for everybody, all the us conditioned souls here in this material world. So, really quickly, just gonna review. So, for guidance, I think that Mother Kayadu and Mother Sunita really, really exemplify being a wonderful guide. As a spiritual guide, Mother Janava is a wonderful example of that. Someone who represents resilience is Mother Kunti. Selflessness is exemplified in Mother Devaki, to me. Someone who is extremely, extremely mindful is Mother Yashoda. Someone who is compassionate to an nth degree is Mother Sita. And someone who is loving is Srimati Radharani. However, even though we're done with the list, we actually was thinking about this, and Prabhuji did help me, and he kind of made me realize this point, that out of all of these mothers, there is one mother that hasn't been mentioned yet, and that actually is the ultimate mother. Yes, Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate mother. And actually he says in the Bhagavad Gita, and I believe it's verse 9.17, if I'm not wrong, he says, Pitaham asya jagato mata dhata pitamaha vedyam pavitram omkara rik sama yajur evacha. He says, I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier and the syllable Om. I am also the Rig, Sam, and Yajur Vedas. So, when I was thinking about this, when I was preparing for this lecture, I actually started watching a video of Manasvi Mataji. I didn't finish the video because I kind of had a feeling of where I was going to go with this lecture, so I started kind of writing down my notes, and I got a little digressed. But so what I was thinking of is actually, just as, we, or a baby comes from a mother, we all come from Krishna. And actually what I was thinking when I thought about that is about the past time where Mother Yashoda actually looked into Krishna's mouth because she actually wanted to check and see if he ate dirt. And, she obviously asked him and tried to look in his mouth with the expectation of finding something and being like, oh, Lala, why did you eat this and this and that? And she was going to, fulfill the role of a mother. But what she actually ended up seeing was the whole cosmic manifestation in his mouth. And, when I thought about that pastime, it was actually an extremely, extremely humbling thought because, we as women and as, future mothers or people, all of you who are already mothers, we carry one soul maybe in our stomach, and we carry maybe two if you're lucky if you're having twins. But with this pastime, Krishna shows that we are all in his belly. We are all in him. Even at this moment, we are all, these activities that we're doing, they're all happening in Krishna, which is such an amazing realization. And I think when I think about that, it actually makes me, I think it increases my respect as well as my love for Krishna definitely to another level because it's just, it's very insane. These things you can't really ever really comprehend unless you actually sit down and think about it. And then you realize how small you actually are. You're actually like a drop in the ocean, so it's amazing. So, just to conclude, I think on this Mother's Day, I think that we should all really, really be grateful and thankful to the Eternal Mother, who is Krishna, and of course Radharani, because she is the one that if she doesn't approve of us, Krishna won't even give us the time of day. So, we really should pray to them that we can always be in their service, and they can always protect us, they can always guide us in the right direction, and they can bring us back to them because we're missing from home at the moment, and we need to go back home. So, it's just a wonderful thought to leave you all with. So as we always conclude in our Bhakti Rikshas, and this is Ramakrishna Prabhu's signature thing to do, and I think it's very, very effective. So please say this with me 3 times as I have it written down. Please always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna. Thank you so much. Hari Bol, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Again, like I mentioned earlier before I started, I just want to take a moment and just thank all of the mothers here. They're wonderful examples, and I really, really hope, when I reach the next phase in my life of being married and having kids, I hope that I can be even 1/10 of what you all are. You are wonderful women. Thank you so much for all of your association. Yes, thank you. All right, Ramakrishna, you can.
Oh.